Let me ask you something. Have you ever heard whispering when no one's there? Found threads where they shouldn't be? Or maybe, just maybe, caught your reflection moving when you didn't? This is the story of Lakshmi and the thing that lived in her brother's puppets. The story of the Vetala, an ancient horror that doesn't just kill its victims. It collects them forever. So turn off the lights, get comfortable, and pray you don't recognize any of this when it starts happening to you. Let me tell you about the day the whispers began. I still remember the smell of my brother Arjun's workshop. Teak wood and coconut oil, with that faint metallic tang puppets get when their joints haven't been oiled in weeks. The monsoon had soaked everything, thickening the air until it clung to your skin like a second layer. I was going through Arjun's things 3 months after they found him, after they cut him down from that damn banyan tree. You've probably seen the photos, the red threads pulling at his lips like some broken marionette. They said it was an accident, but we both know better, don't we? The Vetala wanted him. That afternoon, I found his old recorder. Cheap German plastic, warped from the humidity. I pressed play, and the button stuck like it always did. Then his voice came through. There's something in the banyan tree. Lakshmi, it's been asking me riddles. Last night it said, what has no voice but screams? I think it wants static, just static. I nearly dropped the thing, and that's when one of his unfinished puppets fell from a shelf. This grotesque, half-carved thing with no eyes. I went to pick it up and felt them. Teeth, human-like teeth, set in the wooden mouth, so sharply carved they felt almost real. I stared at them, little white fangs glistening in the lantern light. And that's when I heard the children outside, chanting that cursed rhyme. Vetala sits. Vetala waits. You know the rest, don't you? I turned toward the cracked mirror above Arjun's workbench, and just for a heartbeat, I saw it, standing behind me, pale as a corpse, fingers like spider legs gripping my shoulders. Its mouth was sewn shut, just like Arjun's. Then the light went out. In the dark, the recorder clicked on by itself. Let's play a game. And from the corner of the workshop, something stood up. But before I go on, there's something you need to know. Earlier that week, an old priest from the edge of the village stopped me near the temple. He didn't say much, just handed me a cloth bundle filled with rusted iron nails. For when the stories start remembering you back, he whispered. I thought he was mad. Now, I'm not so sure. Our grandmother used to tell us bedtime stories about spirits that lived in trees, tales that waited in silence, listening for the right voice. I laughed at her back then. Not anymore. The recorder kept playing, and the whisper, it wasn't finished. I should have burned that damned workshop to the ground when I had the chance. The moment the lantern died, I knew I wasn't alone anymore. The air turned thick with the scent of spoiled jasmine flowers, the same smell that clung to Arjun's clothes when they brought him down from the tree. My fingers closed around the puppet with human teeth still in my other hand, its wooden face suddenly warm against my palm. The children's chanting outside had stopped. Only the rain remained, its steady rhythm on the thatched roof suddenly sounding too much like fingernails dragging across skin. Then the Grundig recorder clicked on again. Lakshmi. The voice wasn't Arjun's anymore. It was layered, a woman's high pitch beneath a man's growl, with something else underneath, something that crackled like dry insect wings. You didn't answer my first riddle. Something shifted in the darkness. Not footsteps, not quite. More like the sound of old newspaper being carefully unfolded. Paper could breathe in hungry little gasps. I struck a match. The flame revealed the workshop transformed. All of Arjun's puppets hung at odd angles, their strings tangled together in a glistening red web. The one in my hand, the unfinished one with human teeth, now had eyes, glassy and wet, pupils wide as a cat's at midnight. In the far corner where Arjun used to store his tools, something crouched. At first I thought it was just another puppet. The proportions were all wrong, limbs too long, torso too narrow. It turned its head, not the smooth rotation of wood on wire, but the jerky, bone-on-bone movement of something that had learned to mimic human motion poorly. It raised one hand, not a hand really, more like 5 lengths of polished teak bound together with what looked like hair, human hair. From its fingertips dangled crimson threads, swaying though there was no breeze. Second riddle, it said, and now I saw its mouth wasn't moving in time with the words. The lips, if you could call them that, were stitched shut with the same red thread they'd found in Arjun's flesh. What belongs to you? But others use it more. The match burned down to my fingers. The pain barely registered. I ran, not like in stories where people scream and fling doors open. I moved like a thief, sliding along the walls, holding my breath until my lungs burned. The puppet with teeth still clutched in my fist. The village streets were empty. Not even the stray dogs that usually barked at shadows. Just the rain and the occasional flicker of lamplight behind curtained windows. I passed old Mrs. Nair's house and saw her through the window, making the sign against evil over her sleeping grandson. Then I saw it. The flame at the temple altar, a single wavering light in the storm. It was as if something was guiding me, or warning me. The temple gates stood open. I fell at Callie's feet, my breath coming in ragged gasps. When the priest found me, I couldn't speak, just held out my trembling hand, the puppet teeth gleaming in the oil lamp's glow. His face changed then, not fear exactly, more like the look a fisherman gets when he realizes his nets have brought up something from much deeper waters than he intended. Vetala, he whispered, pressing an iron nail into my palm. It doesn't just take bodies, it collects stories, and it's chosen you as its new storyteller. I looked down at the nail. Even in the dim light, I could see the rust already spreading from where my sweat touched the metal. Then he said something else, just under his breath. I almost missed it. The red thread. It's the stitching of stories. When it binds, memory obeys. That was 3 nights ago. Now I hear it everywhere. In the white noise between radio stations. In the creak of my house settling after dark. Yesterday, I caught my reflection in the mirror, holding up 5 fingers when I was holding up 3. And the riddles. They're becoming clearer. Last night, as I lay half asleep, something whispered from the corner of my room. Lakshmi, let's play another game. I recognized the voice. It was mine. The priest's iron nail turned to rust by morning. I found it in my palm as a fine red powder, staining my sheets like dried blood. That's when I knew no temple could protect me from what was coming. I needed answers. I needed to know why it chose Arjun and why it hadn't stopped with him. The fear gnawed at me like a slow poison, each passing moment more suffocating than the last. So I returned to Arjun's workshop at noon, when the sun should have been highest. But the monsoons choked the sky with swollen clouds, leaving everything in that perpetual twilight that makes you question whether day has truly come. The workshop door stood slightly ajar. I'd sworn I locked it. Inside, the puppets had rearranged themselves. They hung in a perfect circle now, their strings forming a spiderweb across the ceiling. At the center dangled Arjun's favorite, the Kathakali dancer with emerald eyes. Only now its face. God, its face was all wrong. The carved wood had softened, warped, taken on the unmistakable contours of my brother's features. Its mouth moved soundlessly, lips still bound by those crimson threads. I stepped closer. The smell hit me. That same sweet rot stench from the night before, but stronger now, mixed with the metallic tang of fresh blood. My blood. I touched my nose, and my fingers came away red. The Grundig recorder sat in the center of the workbench, tape spinning though it wasn't plugged in. I pressed stop. The moment my finger left the button, it clicked back on. You never answered my second riddle. The layered voices whispered. Shall I give you a hint? A puppet string snapped above me. Then another. And another, the Kathakali puppet with Arjun's face dangled loosely, its head slowly tilting toward me, eyes gleaming in the dim light. That's when I understood. I'd seen it before, the way the puppets twitched when I wasn't looking, the way Arjun's face seemed to move when I thought it should be still. The tiny, unsettling details that never added up until now. All those folktales we'd heard as children, they got it wrong. The Vetala doesn't just inhabit corpses. It curates them, preserves them, turns them into its own twisted puppets. The workshop walls began to weep. Not water, something thicker, darker, that streaked the wood like old tears. It gathered in pools on the floor, reflecting not the room, but other places, a well I didn't recognize. The banyan tree where they'd found Arjun. My own bedroom, empty except for something crouching in the corner. The upside-down puppet's mouth stretched against its threads. A wet tearing sound as the stitches began to pop, one by one. What hangs upside down but sees everything? The Vetala whispered through the puppet's newly freed lips. I ran again, but this time I took something with me. Arjun's journal from the workbench. Its pages stuck together with something I didn't dare identify. That night, by candlelight, I found his final entry. It's not the riddles that matter. It's the silences between them. The Vetala hides in the unspoken words. Lakshmi, whatever you do, don't. The page ended there. But on the next sheet, in handwriting that wasn't Arjun's, a single sentence. You should have answered when you had the chance. Now the whispers come every night at 3:03 a.m. exactly. The same time they found Arjun. Last night, my reflection didn't move when I did. It just smiled, its lips sewn shut with familiar red thread. And from the shadows behind me, something whispered the fourth riddle. What is always behind you, but never where you can see? The journal pages stuck together with something dark and clotted. When I finally peeled them apart, the truth unraveled before me like one of the Vetala's crimson threads. Arjun hadn't just been researching folktales before he died. He'd been tracking our family history, page after page of our grandmother's stories, annotated in his frantic handwriting. One passage stood out, circled in what looked like charcoal. The Vetala always takes the storyteller first, then it waits for the listener to become the new vessel. Our grandmother used to whisper about the curse on our bloodline, how every generation of twins in our family birthed one storyteller and one listener. She called it a gift, but her eyes always clouded with something darker when she said it. How the Vetala have been feeding on our stories since the Great Famine of 1943. The red threads weren't just for show. They were literal threads of narrative, of memory, stitching our family's tragedies into its ever-growing collection. I had heard these tales as a child, but I had dismissed them then. Arjun, though, he couldn't get enough of them. He would spend hours going through our grandmother's old journals, obsessed with the details, with the connections between the past and present. I thought it was just a phase, but now I understood. He'd been tracing his own fate. I nearly vomited when I turned the page and found strands of my own hair pressed between the sheets. The whispers grew louder after that. Last night, I awoke to something pressing down on my chest. Not the Vetala itself, one of its puppets, a twisted thing shaped like a child, its blank face pierced by two uneven holes for eyes. It held a needle threaded with crimson silk. You still haven't answered the third riddle, it whispered in Arjun's voice. Shall I make it easier? When I tried to scream, it pressed a wooden finger to where my lips should part. I felt the skin, strangely smooth, as if something had erased it entirely. Unbroken, as if my mouth had never existed at all. The candle by my bed guttered out. In the dark, the thing began to hum, a lullaby our mother used to sing. I felt the needle prick at the space above my lip. A slow, deliberate drag of thread through flesh as it began sewing my mouth shut. Then, miraculously, my hand found a rusted nail the priest had given me. I drove it into the puppet's eye. The thing shrieked, a sound like radio static and breaking bones, before crumbling into a pile of sticks and hair. But the victory tasted hollow. As the first light of dawn filtered through my window, I saw why. Red threads now spiraled out from my bedroom walls, forming an intricate web across the ceiling. At its center hung dozens of tiny, crudely fashioned puppets, their faces distorted in ways that almost seemed familiar. The largest puppet, its face still unfinished, but I could see the beginnings of mine. Its hands, oh God, its hands were made of real bone. From somewhere deep in the house, the Grundig recorder clicked on. Final riddle. The Vetala whispered through 100 puppet mouths at once. What belongs to the storyteller, but always dies with the listener? I looked down at my hands. The skin around my fingernails had begun to darken, to harden, to turn to wood. I watch in growing unease as the darkness spreads across my fingers, the skin slowly turning stiff like the wood of a forgotten doll. My joints click when I bend them now, not the snap of bone, but the dry creak of seasoned wood. The Vetala's threads have woven through my entire house, pulsing faintly like veins when the moon rises. Last night, I found the answer to its final riddle carved into my bedroom wall. What belongs to the storyteller, but always dies with the listener? The story, the realization, came too late. My reflection hasn't moved independently in 3 days. It simply watches with painted eyes as I deteriorate. This morning I found red threads growing from my gums where teeth should be. The village priest won't answer my calls anymore. When I went to the temple, the statue of Kali had its eyes covered with crimson cloth. Even stray dogs howl when I pass. The Grundig recorder runs constantly now, cycling through every story Arjun ever collected. His voice changes gradually, the cadence wrong, the words twisting into something predatory. Sometimes it plays backward, and in those distorted syllables I hear instructions. Find the next listener, finish the collection, become the new home. I tried burning the puppets. The flames turned blue and cold, leaving behind only more threads. I attempted cutting the strings in my house. The scissors melted like wax. When I try to run, my feet move only in circles, as though the threads are pulling me back, binding me not just to this place, but to this fate. This morning, I awoke hanging upside down from my bedroom ceiling. The threads hold me gently, lovingly. Through the window, I see the banyan tree where they found our June. There's a new shape among its branches now, swaying slightly in the monsoon winds. The villagers will discover it soon. My hands are fully wooden now. I use them to write this final warning. The change spreads upward. My joints feel stiff, moving unnaturally, as if something inside me is rearranging itself. Soon I'll be beautiful. Soon I'll be complete. I remember the priest's words as I write this, though they feel far away now. The iron nail can slow the tale, not end it. Only the listener can break the loop. The grunted recorder just clicked on again. Lakshmi, it whispers in my voice now. Let me tell you a story. Outside, a child laughs. The first potential listener has arrived. Check your reflections carefully tonight. Count your fingers. And if you hear 3 knocks followed by a whisper, consider this your invitation to continue the tale. Every instance of the word thread in this story appears in red when viewed under blue light.